So that's just a quick overview of the surface. And now what I want to do is really talk about the core aspects of rave psychology here. And so, you have, and have you looked a bit at your rave psychology, your fear motivation, or your power view?
A little bit. I wouldn't say it's great depth, but I definitely have considered all four variables as I've been learning the basics.
Cool, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so your motivation is fear. It's not about being afraid. It's really about getting to the bottom of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about learning, really. It's anti-ignorance. Figuring out how stuff works, learning really ensures your survival, and you can become this teacher, and it's great when people ask you why or how does that work. If you're feeling a bit scared about something, then the natural response there can be to kind of dig in, if it's something that you're meant to be thinking about, where you could get pulled into transference toward need is when you're talking to people and they say, well, nobody needs that. Well, why is that necessary? Why do you need to know that? Then you start thinking about people's needs. Is that needed? Do I need to know that? And you get pulled to this opposite side. And so that transference is, it's called need. It's getting lost in either your own needs or other people's needs.
Mm-hmm.
Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, and my brother is need. So I can see myself doing that a lot with someone like him too, because it just kind of pulls me into it. And yeah, it's just not it's just allowing myself to be swept away by the other in terms of what they're interested in and what they think is important, instead of being like, but I actually think that this thing over here is important and I want to know everything about it.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. I mean, certainly not everything. And so with that open head, there can be this tendency to be thinking about things that don't matter. And then you have this fear motivation to dig into things that don't matter. And maybe in hindsight, you're like, why did I get so lost in trying to figure all that out? I don't even really care,
Yeah.
But you are meant to be this researcher, this investigator, even though you're a 3-5, you're not a first line profile, because of your first color motivation, you are meant to be this, dogged investigator. So, but in response, of course, as with everything.
Yeah.
There's also this trajectory in your life, and it's called communalist to separatist.
Right.
And so the way that you sort of feel comfortable or survive is not getting lost in groups and tribes. Even though you are a tribal person and you can be supportive, you probably don't feel, earlier in life, there might have been group activities and organizations you belong to, but as you get older, it's kind of like, yeah, it feels a little bit more comfortable on my own. Maybe I have one foot in, they come to you, but you don't want to get lost in that. And so there's the sense of, I really feel safer on my own.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The older I get, I'm just like, I generally speaking just enjoy it when I can finally just be by myself.
Yeah. So, and with your need transference, again, it's lost in your own needs, other people's needs. One thing you might hear yourself say is, well, what about my needs?
Right.
And that's really going to be a big one for you that is going to kind of permeate a lot of what we're going to talk about today. It's going to show up in a lot of different ways.
Okay.
And it could also look like giving people what you think they need without really having your foundation. Because you're meant to, like, again, that first color is meant to really get down to the essence of things, know how things really work. But if you're not in touch with that, right? If you're not actually digging deep and really getting solid, right? And people are going to be projecting on you at this 5th line profile, and they're saying, hey, you can help me. But if you're not solid, when they come to you for help, and you're like, oh, I think I know what they need, then you're giving them something that's half-baked that you don't fully understand.
Yeah.
And then, it's going to be trial and error and, all that stuff, a bumpy experience for you with that 3rd line. The thing to bear in mind here as we talk about the motivation and the view is that Transference isn't a bad thing, and it never stabilizes on this conscious side of the chart.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It does, transference does occur. Some people don't know this, but I've proven it without fail. Transference does occur on the unconscious side, but it can stabilize after following your PHS. You know, you're eating correctly, you're taking in life correctly, you've been following strategy and authority. So basically you get to this point where, you know, you have this inherent preference to eat the correct way, to be in the right conditions, in the right environment, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
My point is that we're looking at this side of the chart today. And so this conscious side, it never stabilizes. What you're really looking for is to just catch the transference or the distraction we're going to talk about in a moment,
Mm-hmm.
and not act from there. So it becomes a healthy counterpoint.
Mm-hmm.
We need those kind of counterpoints. So if you look at any of these motivations or views, they need the other one to kind of, it's like a yin and yang thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, if you think about it, this fear motivation of like, well, how do things really work? You know, let's get down to the bottom of things. It does end up serving people's needs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not meant to lead with that.
Right.
You know, or
Yeah.
my motivation is guilt, which is all about fixing things, you know, helping people, fixing things.
Right.
And so my transference would be hope. Well, of course, I'm fixing things that I believe there's a hope can be fixed, but I'm not
Mhm.
leading with it. It's sort of trailing in the background.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I just want to set the record straight that it isn't about, oh, transference is bad, I'm going to understand this and it's never going to happen again. It's about just catching yourself, you know, identifying with those transferred thoughts, you know, midstream, and then being like, oh, wow, okay, I'm acting as if I know what they need right now, or I'm caught up in my own needs. I need to just pause.
Yeah. Yeah.